Come on, Lego, you can't make a video about this. The trade deadline is already over. What are you doing talking about trade rumors? Come on, it's fine. Let's go over some stuff that might happen in the future, not trade ideas in the now, but speculation that has been brought up by very legitimate NHL insider sources on very legitimate NHL insider shows. So we're going over to the Chicago Blackhawks and we're talking about none other than their captain, Jonathan Toews. I think everybody's kind of familiar at this point with Captain Sirius and the profile he provides. He's 33 years old, 6'2", 201, a left-handed center, making $10.5 million a year until the end of next season. Patrick Kane is also making a significant amount of money until the end of next season. And so, for the Chicago Blackhawks, a team that isn't really all too great, and that has two franchise-altering superstars on the payroll until the end of next season, this is a team that you could very well see exploring the route of a rebuild. Now, the reason we're even bringing this up is because of the recent segment on the Jeff Marek show from yesterday, April 1st. I will leave a link in the description to the specific audio piece I'm talking about. It is, at the time of recording this audio, the second most recent show. Marek and Friedman, is Keith Yandle's Ironman streak in jeopardy? Now, I'll answer that question first and foremost right here. Yes, it is. It's actually been confirmed today that Yandle will be a scratch, and thus ending his illustrious Ironman streak, one of the top streaks of all time. Actually, no, it is the top streak. Actually, yeah, my bad. There's an entire conversation to go out with that, but I'll just say this right here. A lot of Flyers fans are kind of happy that Yandle's Ironman streak is ending, not because they're not fans of the streak, but because Yandle just isn't that good anymore. Phil Kessel is right behind him with like 30 fewer games, so assuming Kessel stays healthy now, and then next season he's healthy as well, he will most likely take over the number one Ironman streak title in NHL history. But aside from that, because that is the title of the audio hit, there is a conversation that Marek and Friedman have about one Jonathan Toews and a potential team that Marek sees that could be a fit. It comes at, the 21-minute, 28-second mark of the show, so you can go ahead, click the link in the description and go to that timestamp if you want to see exactly what it is we're talking about. Because nobody transcribed this and put it on the Twitter or anything, I had to personally transcribe it myself, so here is my notes application on my MacBook, so here you go. Here's what I wonder about Jonathan Toews, Jeff Marek says. There's one team specifically, and it would involve Chicago holding half the contract. Friedman says, Marek replies, the Boston Bruins. Second-line center, he doesn't have to go in and be a savior. He doesn't have to go in and, he's here to help the kids. He can just go in and play. Take that David Krejci second-line center spot behind Patrice Bergeron. This is provided that Bergeron comes back too. And then up the gut you go Bergeron and Toews. And Toews doesn't have to worry about anything else other than just go play hockey. And I think if you're Chicago, it's a sunk cost. You eat half the contract, you make the deal with the Bruins. Boston's going to take another shot at this thing if Bergeron comes back. They've just re-upped Hampus Lindholm, and him and McAvoy look great together. Swayman looks good. That's the one I wonder about, you know? If there's an obvious spot for Toews, I wonder if it could be Boston, Friedge. Friedman then replies, I could see it. It's a good theory, it's not as dumb as your chasing the shootout theory yesterday. And then they share a few laughs. Friedman then replies saying that there are going to be teams that will call about both these players, Toews and Kane. And I will say this as well, before this entire conversation happened about the Bruins and Jonathan Toews, Friedman went on an entire spiel highlighting a few very direct things about the Blackhawks and their direction. This team is looking to rebuild, not reload, not retool on the fly, not try to remain competitive while they still have Toews and Kane. No, rebuild. Full on, just send it, balls to the wall. We're going to go out there, sell all of our stuff, because we want to take this team in a completely new direction. Friedman also highlighted that, for Patrick Kane specifically, he's hearing more and more that Kane is more on the side of, okay, I really do like it in Chicago and I kind of want to stay here for the rest of my career. Whether or not that changes, we'll see, but for now that appears to be the sentiment. He also highlights that for Jonathan Toews, he's getting more of a vibe that Toews just wants to win, and whether or not that's here in Chicago or elsewhere around the league, his main priority would still to be competitive and hopefully go out with a bang towards the end of this contract and potentially his career. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's kind of the sentiment he's getting. Now, when it comes to the idea of Toews and the Bruins themselves, firstly, it is kind of traumatic thinking about the idea of a former Stanley Cup rivals captain heading over to your team years down the line. It happened in Vancouver in the 90s with Mark Messier, it happened a few other times here and there, but like, for Boston fans, it's kind of difficult for me to envision that same sort of disdain towards Jonathan Toews, mostly because for Boston, they've been in the finals 3 times in the past decade, that it's no longer just, oh, they made it there, they had Toews as the captain of the team they were facing, and Toews went out there and won. It's okay, they won in 2011, they lost 2 years later to the Blackhawks against Jonathan Toews, and then they lost even further down the line after that against an Alex Pietrangelo and Ryan O'Reilly-led St. Louis Blues team. There's a lot of emotional yo-yoing going around here, where it's super high up when you win in 2011, it's super far down when you lose in 2013, and then it's super far down again in 2019. There isn't really that same, okay, super dedicated, one emotion fits all scenario here with Jonathan Toews, which is why I feel like it's a little bit easier to accept the idea of him going there rather than that ill-fated Messier situation in the 90s. Toews obviously would need to be salary retained. He's making $10.5 million this year and next year, so $5.25 million AAV would be the contract heading over to Boston. As Marek highlighted, they do have the assets to be competitive still. With Bergeron hopefully coming back, you still have yourselves McAvoy and Lindholm. You sign Lindholm to a long-term deal. Swayman is looking good. And if you have yourselves that 1-2 punch of Bergeron and Toews, who knows how good that second line is going to be. The Bruins have been regarded as a one-line team for a while now, and it's been arguably the biggest flaw this team has had the past little while, that sure, they have top-caliber forwards, they've got a D-core that isn't bad, they've got goaltending that is more than average, but the rest of their lineup after that first line is just a little bit lackluster. Take a look at this right here. Their second-line center right now is Erik Haula. After that, you have Charlie Coyle. Tomáš Nosek follows up on the fourth line. Having Jonathan Toews in here instead would be an extraordinarily huge upgrade. And imagine this guy playing out there with Taylor Hall and whoever the heck else is there on that second-line right wing spot. Toews, of course, would still need to go out there and improve himself because he's got 29 points in 58 games played this season. He's on pace for 35 points in 71 games. As we highlighted in a previous video talking about Jonathan Toews and his concerns in the future with the Blackhawks, he's going to really need to improve that overall profile in order to make him worth the $10.5 million, let alone $5.25 million, should he get salary retained at 50%, because, I'm sorry, a 35-point player is not worth $5.25 million. You're gonna have to get a little bit better than that, Jonathan. And sure, he's 2 years removed from being a 60-point guy in 70 games and being a point per game in the postseason in the bubble. He was at 81 points in 2019. He had the year off in 2021 because of the health problems he faced, but Jonathan Toews has still had such a tenured NHL career that if there's anybody that you're going to have to bet is willing and able to bounce back, especially on a team better than Chicago, should he get traded to a team like Boston, I guess Toews would be a safe bet to make. Now, the question then arises as to what exactly the Bruins would give up in a Jonathan Toews trade. It's going to have to be pretty big, right? I mean, maybe not too big because he would be considered a rental after all. He's only got 1 year left. The Bruins have their first-round picks in 2023 and 2024. They've got their second in 2022, and they've got 3 thirds in 2022, 2023, and 2024. You take a look at what Claude Giroux got for about a few months' worth of his play. The Philadelphia Flyers actually added onto that trade when they sent him over to the Panthers, but in return they got themselves a few picks as well as Owen Tippett. If you could assume that Jonathan Toews goes for around the same, maybe spare the extra stuff that Giroux got traded with, you're probably looking at maybe a first-round pick from the Bruins, maybe a second thrown in there as well, and then another prospect. The problem is their prospect core isn't really the best. Aside from Fabian Lysell, this team just hasn't had the best luck when it comes to drafting guys, in my opinion. Sure, you have John Boucher in the system, and you have some other guys there too, but there's a reason why Boston has been ranked towards the bottom when it comes to overall prospect pools the past few years. But Fabian Lysell is a good enough name that I could honestly see him maybe being considered, especially if Chicago is looking for more of those versatile, speedy, and hardworking forwards. But either way, you can let me know in the comments all your thoughts about this idea over here, brought up by Jeff Marek on the Jeff Marek Show. Jonathan Toews to the Boston Bruins. Do you see this happening? Do you like this idea? Would you, could you, or should you even think about it if you are either Chicago or Boston? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British 99. And bye.